Hey there, everybody, and welcome to the Daily Space Weather. We've got a dipping solar activity here over the past 24 hours, I'll say. We've got a dip in the sunspot number and indeed in the radio flux. Let's get to it. First thing we're looking at is 304 angstroms here. And we've got some setting groups here. There's a named sunspot group here, sort of right in the Earth-facing zone. It's pretty small. It's degraded, as has sunspot 2916. We're about to be down to one named sunspot group and maybe zero by the time we make tomorrow's video. We may still see some major flares, though. We're not shutting down the coronal mass ejection watch yet. We've reduced the warning to a watch. Also, there's a solar flare watch in effect. And we could see some additional activity. This is a 48-hour video, by the way. It does include yesterday's M-class flare, which did produce an Earth-directed coronal mass ejection. We'll see if the space weather enthusiast dashboards covered it or not. 94 angstroms is a great wavelength with which to view solar flares. Radio flux is down to 94 solar flux units. There's the one-year chart of that. That's got to be refreshed yet today. And there's the space weather enthusiast dashboard. No space weather storms forecasted. We're not expecting a major impact from the CME. That occurred early in the day on New Year's Day. So nothing showing up there in the space weather enthusiast dashboard. Here's the latest intensity gram. And it's old, for some reason showing New Year's Eve. All right, continuing on to see what's going on with earthquakes. And it's basically a lull in earthquake activity here. We did see a deep earthquake in Afghanistan. We covered it yesterday. Pretty much low levels of seismicity here globally. I think the largest quake of the past 24 was a 5.4 in China, 98 kilometers east of Shangri-La. Let us know in the comments if you believe that portion of the world to be a Shangri-La. Also a 5.1 at the South Sandwich Islands. Probably the most seismically active portion of the planet here for the past couple of months. Additional aftershock there in Afghanistan at a 4.2 magnitude, over 200 kilometers estimated depth. Checking the temperature of the planet, we should look at volcanoes. Suwanosejima is still erupting. 7,000-foot ash plume from Suwanosejima. Hungatonga Hunga Ha'apai. Intermittent eruptions there, no size of ash plume reported. Nova Rupta now showing up. Nova Rupta has been erupting, producing a 6,000-foot plume of volcanic ash. That's located on the Alaskan Peninsula. Popocatépetl now back on the list as it explodes in central Mexico. 21,000-foot ash plume from Popocatépetl. Fuego exploding. 15,000-foot ash plume over Guatemala from Fuego. Sangay exploding. Also Revenador. They're both located in the country of Ecuador. Sangay producing a flight level 190. Or a 19,000-foot plume of volcanic ash. Revenador, 15,000-foot plume of volcanic ash. And Sabancaya also exploding. Flight level 260 over Peru. Please do not pole vault the caldera. Today's featured product is the Do Not Pole Vault the Caldera socks. Smash staff and I own pairs. I think I've got 2 and she's got 1. It's a public service message where we inform you that pole vaulting the caldera could be unhealthful. And since we need the views on YouTube, it's crucial, folks. It's crucial that we get the views on YouTube. So please don't pole vault the caldera. That could be unhealthful. Even inactive volcanoes, please don't pole vault the caldera. It's not a very good place to do a pole vault. And you can see the relative levels of danger on that image. You can find links on the homepage to that. Welcome to the Neo Renaissance, smAsho.com. Click on smAsho merch to find that. And if you'd like to support the Smash team via our replacement to Patreon, we replaced it with something vastly superior, our own website, and we've barely even begun to use the features. Click here on smashomash.com/Smash team. You'll find links there on the homepage. There is a teaser for the most recent posts, thanks to our gold, silver, and gold paid-up annual subscriptions. Let's continue on with magnetic data. And there is a coronal hole wind stream, which is still at high speed mode. There's the GOES magnetometer measurements over the past 3 days. Nothing too exciting going on there. Earth is in a North Pole current sheet. There is a South Pole current sheet headed this way, folks. So maybe we're going to see some activity rise in the northern hemisphere. We'll be keeping an eye on the eastern limb, the northeastern limb of the closest star. Here is the line of sight ecliptic plane field plot. Again, South Pole current sheet could be here by tomorrow. There's the top view one more time. Could be some activity in the northern hemisphere. Anyway, here's the line of sight coronal hole plot. You can see some North Pole oriented coronal holes and a south one rotating in here, shown here in red. Here's a close-up of it. Also some filaments down there in the southeast. And here's your full disk view in that same wavelength, 193 angstroms. And let's continue on and look at sunspots. We don't have very many. We're about to be down to one named group with sunspot 2922. 2923 has degraded, and 2916 has degraded as well. So likelihood of solar flares is coming down, but there still is a solar flare warning and a coronal mass ejection watch in place because, well, these are still capable of producing large flares even as they set on the western limb. Here's a 1700 angstroms view from the SDO. And we might be down to 0 sunspots by the time we make tomorrow's video. No major flares over the past 24. There was an M-class flare yesterday as well as on New Year's Eve. Minor M-class flares happened there. There was a coronal mass ejection. I still say it's Earth-directed. We'll see what happens. We can expect to see a strike from that in a couple of days. No relativistic particles have shown up as a result of those M-class flares. Real-time solar wind pretty uneventful over the past 24 hours. A partial subsiding here of the coronal hole wind stream. Current solar wind speed, 522 kilometers a second. Solar wind density, 14 protons per cubic centimeter approximately. The BZ has just dipped into negative territory, so that's something to comment on. Besides that, again, pretty unremarkable. KP index at 2. That's a measurement of global geomagnetism, each bar representing 3 hours there, folks. And here's the geospace over the past 4 hours. It's our geospace magnetosphere movie showing magnetohydrodynamic pressure. The pressure is elevated here as a result of that high-speed coronal hole wind. Could be generating some aurorae. Here are the ground magnetic perturbations. Earth's magnetic moment from the ground. Geospace delta changes to Earth's B field. Geospace delta B. Units expressed in this model are nanotesla magnetic flux density. It shows you likely spots where we could expect to see the aurora. And like the last frame, that's 4 hours of data. Happy new moon, folks. Here is the solar system forecast for the next 7 days. We will have a crescent waxing on the 9th. Here's a star chart. If you're up before dawn, you may see Mars rising ahead of the sun. We've also drawn on the galactic plane there. That's that blue line. That's what's going on above my head here in Lehigh Valley. Let's see what's going on from the perspective of stereo A and from the LASCO C3. We did see additional coronal mass ejections here. These, we would anticipate them to be missing the Earth to the north and the west. Here you can see from stereo A, very high north coronal mass ejection. And to get a little bit more of an idea of how it was directed, we look at the LASCO C3. You can see largely to the northwest is where most of that ejecta is headed. Some of it is on the opposite side of the sun also. You can see a little jet out here. That is probably this feature over here. So that's a non-Earth directed CME there. Bring that back to play that one more time for you. Please note the time and date stamps. We're looking at a different chunk of time on each of those images. Again, stereo A located at Lagrange point 5. The LASCO C3 located at Lagrange point 1. Keep in mind there still is a coronal mass ejection watch in effect. And today's cosmology segment's integrated into the daily space weather video, and it's going to be super brief. Check our playlist for more. We've got a moon halo, a quadruple, I guess, because I suppose this is being counted as one halo, and this is a second halo, and there's a third, and then there's a fourth, the inner and outer boundaries of those, caused by ice crystals, the prismatic effects of ice crystals. And you can also see the largest single object visible to the naked eye right there. That's Betelgeuse. Super easy to find. You look at the conspicuous constellation of Orion and the three belts that form the belt, the three stars that form the belt, rather, form a perpendicular line that points directly to Betelgeuse, the red supergiant star that's so large if it was in our solar system centered where the sun is, you'd be inside of it. It's something like the size of Mars's orbit. That's the astronomy picture of the day at apod.nasa.gov. Let's pick a random number. It's 361. And what might that be at the Neil Gorell Swift-Bat X-ray Observatory? Well, it is RGBJ 0158 plus 564, a BL Lacertae object, a type of active galactic nucleus. Let's take a look at it on the CDS portal by clicking on Sinbad and then on CBS. These are the hard X-rays from this galaxy. The upper right is the past 16 years. The lower left is the past 30 days. And the upper left is the daily graph of X-ray output. We've got some anomalous looking features. Let's look at it on the DSS-2 colored. And there's that active galactic nucleus. Let's see if we can find it in some other wavelengths. And there's some pretty low-res images of this in X-ray. Let's go to the UV spectrum. There's some UV output from that active galactic nucleus. Here it is on bands I, R, and G on the Pan-STARRS optical survey. Great resolution there of that galaxy. And last but not least, there it is on the 2MASS, the infrared spectra of that BL Lacertae active galactic nucleus. It's today's, quote, random and, quote, featured object known as RGBJ0158 plus 564. I liked that Pan-STARRS image. Let's go back to that. And if you want to read more about that, you can link to it at the Neil Gorell Swift-Bat X-ray Observatory. It's entry number 361 on the transients page. And there it is in optical light. That's today's cosmology segment. Again, don't forget to check our playlists for more cosmology segments. Thanks to everybody who tuned into those. We've been sharing some of them. youtube.com/smashamash/playlists is where you'll find those cosmology segments. We've got some minor charging hazards for satellites here over the Central Pacific Ocean here. Some minor surface charging there. That is east of Hawaii. Here's the 1-year chart of the relativistic electrons. That's from Solon.info if you want to look that up yourself. Solon.info/solar has that chart. There's the 3-day graph of the electron flux measured at the F ionosphere layer by the GOES 16 and 17 using radiography from their geostationary near equatorial orbits. We see this continued dip in the electron flux there as the coronal hole wind stream continues. So as we forecasted yesterday, you see we're having it a little lower levels than the forecast today. That yellow diamond right where we put our purple mark yesterday. So no argument on the forecast here. That's the NOAA forecast for relativistic electrons. Next, we're going to show you the total electron content forecast, which is this area from between your GPS satellite and your handset. Most GPS errors occur around the equator at noon, and we've been documenting some chaos in the total electron content for the past couple of weeks. That's starting to subside here. A little more normal total electron contents. And we'll also show you one slice of the atmosphere in vibrational frequency, the F ionosphere layer, located at about 300 kilometers of altitude. Here's the ionogram. And we're seeing continued anomalies around the Drake Passage. Been showing this for a couple of weeks. The Drake Passage is a weird spot, folks. If you're new to the channel, you may not realize that the Atlantic Ocean and the Pacific Ocean must try to reach equilibrium through this tiny little body of water known as the Drake Passage. Just think about how much water must rush back and forth when you have, for example, a high-pressure system in the Pacific and a low-pressure system in the Atlantic. Anyway, here's the anomalygram, and this shows it a lot better. If you're not familiar with looking at the ionogram, you may not realize where the anomalies are located. Major anomalies of the low-frequency variety, especially here around that area, where South America gets pretty close to the Antarctic continent, the Drake Passage. Anyway, we'll bring up the latest image here in just a moment. There you go, that's 12:15 Universal Time on the ionogram showing vibrational frequency in megahertz. There is the anomalygram showing anomaly in megahertz from the 30-day median. And now on to bonus features. Here's bonus feature number 1. It's the ground-based solar observatory at El Teide, Spain. Significant filaments here on the sun. You can see some here, you can see some here, even some up here. Quite a few filaments. Next, your GOES 16 SUVI latest imagery. I would note some crown prominences up here. Up here in the north, you can see some crown prominences happening there. Another feature associated with solar maximum. Features like 140 sunspots. And a radial flux of 140, which we just saw recently. So lots of filaments here. Coronal mass ejection watch remains in effect. Solar flare warning remains in effect. Don't be surprised to see additional radial blackouts, possibly even an X-class flare, even though sunspot 2916 is degrading. You can see those light bridges there forming across it, an indication that it's breaking down a bit. That has decayed to plage, so that's no longer a sunspot. And this sunspot has been stable, at least since we did show prep. There are the fields. And we'll close things out with 94 angstroms. Again, one of the best wavelengths through which to view solar flares. We'll see you next time, and may that solar wind be at your back. Opinions expressed in this video, not necessarily the opinions of Smash News Network, least busted, name and news.